Have you ever met someone incredibly intelligent, yet completely unable to perform the simplest tasks? Maybe you're one of them. You've gone to the best schools, worked top-tier jobs, and collected enough degrees to wallpaper your entire house. But when it's time to send a simple message to someone you like, you freeze. You run mental simulations, analyze emoji psychology, debate screen time's effect on the vagus nerve. You build a fortress of logic to hide from a moment of vulnerability. And in the end, you convince yourself, better not send it. And that's when the silence becomes louder than any rejection ever could.
In today's video, we're going to understand why you could build a billion-dollar company but still freeze when it's time to send a simple text to someone you like. Throughout our lives, we're taught that being intelligent is a good thing, maybe the best thing. We learn to think through problems, collect knowledge, analyze experiences, and seek the perfect solution for every situation. And yes, most of the time, intelligence is an advantage, a massive one. Of everything humanity has ever tracked or measured, intelligence correlates with real-world success more than anything else. But here's the twist. There are specific situations where your intelligence doesn't help you. It sabotages you. It becomes your greatest enemy, a trap you don't even see. So, to understand how and why intelligence can hold you back, we need to go back about 1,000 years. In the Middle Ages, your fate was considered divine. Poverty was a spiritual burden, nobility a gift from God. But then came the Enlightenment, and with it, the rise of merit. The promise, you can be anything. Sounds empowering, right? But it came with a hidden cost, status anxiety. Because if everything depends on you, then so does failure. And the smarter you are, the higher the expectations, from others and from yourself. Intelligence becomes a scoreboard, and falling short, even by an inch, feels like moral collapse. Alain de Botton, in his seminal work, Status Anxiety, meticulously dissects this modern affliction. He argues that in a society where meritocracy is the reigning ideology, the sting of failure is amplified. If success is truly within everyone's grasp, then those who don't achieve it are seen as lacking not just luck or opportunity, but fundamental worth. This creates a pervasive, gnawing fear of not measuring up, a constant internal audit of one's social standing. For the intelligent, this anxiety is particularly acute. Their very intellect, once a source of pride and potential, transforms into a relentless internal critic, constantly tallying perceived shortcomings against an ever-rising bar of expectation. The glass ceiling isn't just external, it's an internal, self-imposed barrier reflecting a distorted image of inadequacy. The fear isn't just of failing, but of being seen to fail, of having one's intellectual prowess exposed as insufficient in the harsh light of public judgment.
But here's where it gets darker. Intelligence amplifies this anxiety because it provides the tools for endless self-scrutiny. The highly intelligent mind doesn't just worry, it constructs elaborate hierarchies of worry, meta-analyses of anxiety, recursive loops of self-doubt that would make Kafka proud. Consider the paradox. The same analytical capacity that allows you to solve complex problems becomes the engine of your paralysis. You can model 1,000 scenarios, predict every possible outcome, calculate the probability of rejection with statistical precision. But all this cognitive firepower, instead of liberating you, becomes a prison of infinite analysis. The medieval peasant never questioned whether he was worthy of love. He simply loved or didn't, acted or didn't, within the boundaries of his predetermined fate. But you, armed with intelligence and the promise of self-determination,
carry the crushing weight of infinite possibility and infinite responsibility. This constant pressure to perform, to validate one's intelligence, can lead to a paralysis, a fear of taking risks that might shatter the carefully constructed facade of competence. The silence of not sending that message, then, isn't just hesitation. It's a desperate attempt to avoid the potential judgment that comes with any authentic, vulnerable act. The meritocratic promise whispers, "You can be anything," but the hidden clause reads, "and therefore you must be everything." And that impossibility becomes the seed of a uniquely modern form of suffering, the tyranny of unlimited potential constrained by the terror of imperfection.
Highly intelligent people are masters of logic, but sometimes that logic becomes a defense mechanism. They don't fail, they optimize. They don't hesitate, they analyze. They don't avoid, they strategize. Except they do avoid, they hesitate, they fail. They just tell a better story about it. The mind creates brilliant justifications to cover up emotional fears. Like an artist with infinite paint, they rationalize their way out of vulnerability and into isolation. The tragedy? They believe the story they wrote. Daniel Kahneman's work on System 1 and System 2 thinking offers a profound lens through which to understand this phenomenon. Our System 2, the deliberate, rational, and analytical part of our mind, is often lauded as the pinnacle of intelligence. Yet, as Kahneman illustrates, it can become a sophisticated servant to our intuitive, emotional, and often biased System 1. When faced with emotional discomfort or the perceived threat of vulnerability, the highly intelligent mind doesn't simply react. It constructs an elaborate intellectual fortress. This isn't mere procrastination. It's a meticulously crafted narrative, a labyrinth of what-ifs and optimal strategies designed to mask a primal fear.
The internal monologue becomes a legal brief, arguing passionately for inaction, presenting avoidance as prudence and hesitation as strategic foresight. I shouldn't text her now because she's probably busy with work. And based on her posting patterns, she's most receptive to messages between 7 and 9 p.m., but not on Wednesdays because that's when she goes to yoga. And I need to consider the optimal emotional state for both of us to maximize the probability of a positive response. Sound familiar? This is the genius of the intelligent mind turned against itself. It doesn't create simple excuses. It builds magnificent cathedrals of rationalization, complete with buttresses of probability theory and stained glass windows of optimization frameworks. But here's the insidious part. These aren't conscious deceptions. The tragedy is that this self-deception is so convincing, so logically sound within its own twisted framework that the individual genuinely believes their own excuses. They become trapped in a psychological mirror house where every reflection, no matter how distorted, confirms their self-serving logic. The brilliant mind becomes a master forger, creating counterfeit wisdom that looks and feels like the real thing. Each excuse is a work of art, a perfectly logical sculpture carved from the marble of fear. And the artist, that's you, stands back and admires the craftsmanship, genuinely believing that this avoidance is actually intelligence in action. The fear of emotional exposure, of the unpredictable messiness of human connection, is so potent that the intellect, instead of navigating it, becomes a master illusionist, conjuring reasons to remain safe, isolated, and ultimately unfulfilled. Carl Jung understood this when he wrote about the trickster archetype, that part of the psyche that uses cleverness not to reveal truth, but to obscure it. The intelligent person's greatest trick isn't fooling others, it's fooling themselves so completely that they mistake their own performance for reality. The message remains unsent, not because of a logical flaw in its content, but because the very act of sending it threatens the carefully curated intellectual identity. And so the excuse artist continues painting, creating ever more beautiful justifications for a life half lived. What happens when being smart isn't just something you are, but everything you are? You cling to it, defend it, fear anything that might challenge it. And slowly, curiosity dies. Growth becomes risk. You stay in your comfort zone of expertise and call it integrity. This is the IQ trap, when intelligence stops being a tool and becomes your prison. The result? Emotional fragility masked as intellectual superiority. A mind that's sharp but closed. Carol Dweck's work on the fixed mindset illuminates this intellectual rigidity. When intelligence is perceived as an innate, unchangeable trait, every challenge becomes a test of one's fundamental worth. Failure isn't an opportunity for learning, it's a devastating indictment of one's inherent capabilities. For those caught in the IQ trap, their intellect isn't merely a skill, it's the very foundation of their identity, a fragile glass cage from which they dare not venture. The fear of exposing any intellectual flaw, any gap in knowledge, becomes paramount. This leads to a profound aversion to risk, to new experiences, and to any situation where their intellectual superiority might be questioned. But the cage is more complex than simple fear of failure. It's built from the golden bars of past successes, each achievement another layer of imprisonment. Every time someone said, "You're so smart," another bar was added. Every academic award, every solved problem, every moment of intellectual validation, they all contributed to the construction of this beautiful, suffocating prison. Carl Jung's concept of the persona becomes relevant here. The intelligent individual crafts a public facade of unwavering competence, meticulously curating their intellectual image. But beneath this polished exterior lies the shadow, the repressed fears, insecurities, and unacknowledged aspects of self that are deemed incompatible with the smart identity. The shadow contains all the messy, irrational, beautifully human parts of experience that don't fit the intellectual narrative. It holds the desire to be silly, to make mistakes, to not know, to be vulnerable, to act on impulse, to love without reason. The more rigidly one clings to this intellectual persona, the more potent and destructive the shadow becomes, manifesting as anxiety, defensiveness, and an inability to connect authentically. Consider the tragedy. The very quality that was meant to open doors, intelligence, becomes the lock that keeps you trapped inside. The mind, once a boundless landscape of exploration, shrinks into a meticulously mapped, yet ultimately barren, garden of known facts. This intellectual narcissism creates a peculiar form of loneliness. You're surrounded by people, but you can only relate to them through the narrow window of your expertise. Conversations become opportunities to demonstrate knowledge rather than to connect. Relationships become chess games where you're always calculating 3 moves ahead, never allowing yourself the vulnerable spontaneity that true intimacy requires. Their intellectual narcissism, born of a fixed mindset, ultimately starves the soul, leaving a brilliant mind in an emotional wasteland. And perhaps most tragically, the person in the IQ trap mistakes this isolation for superiority, this rigidity for strength, this fear for wisdom. They don't see the cage because they're too busy polishing the bars. Before we dive into how to rebuild from this, leave a comment below with the phrase, "I see the trap." It's our way of knowing you made it this far and that this message resonated with you. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. What if intelligence isn't one thing, but many? Emotional, social, creative, physical. What if the real superpower isn't having a high IQ, but being able to shift between multiple forms of knowing? That's what adaptability is. The ability to navigate complexity, not just with logic, but with heart, timing, and intuition. The world isn't a math test anymore. It's a moving landscape, and survival belongs to those who can evolve. This notion of diversified intelligence moves beyond the narrow confines of purely cognitive ability, embracing a more holistic understanding of human capacity. Daniel Goleman's groundbreaking work on emotional intelligence, EQ, highlights that the ability to understand and manage one's own emotions and to perceive and influence the emotions of others is often a more powerful predictor of success and well-being than traditional IQ. But let's go deeper. Imagine intelligence not as a single towering skyscraper, but a sprawling, interconnected city with different districts representing various forms of knowing. There's the analytical quarter, with its gleaming towers of logic and reason. But there's also the emotional borough, with its winding streets of empathy and intuition. The creative arts district pulses with innovation and imagination. The social commons buzzes with the energy of human connection and cultural understanding. The somatic suburbs hum with bodily wisdom and kinesthetic knowing. The true power lies not in the height of one building, but in this seamless flow of traffic between them, the dynamic interplay of diverse functions. Most people trapped in the IQ cage live exclusively in the analytical quarter, occasionally venturing to the borders, but never truly exploring the rich complexity of the full metropolitan area of human intelligence. Consider the wisdom of the body, that ancient intelligence that knows when someone is lying before your conscious mind catches up, that guides your hand to comfort a friend before you've even decided to do so, that makes you inexplicably uncomfortable in certain situations for reasons you can't articulate but shouldn't ignore. This somatic intelligence, dismissed by many as mere intuition, often contains more practical wisdom than hours of analysis. Or consider the intelligence of timing, that mysterious capacity some people have to know exactly when to speak and when to remain silent, when to push and when to yield, when to reveal and when to conceal. This temporal intelligence can't be reduced to algorithms or frameworks, yet it often determines the success or failure of our most important endeavors. In a world characterized by constant flux and unpredictable challenges, rigid adherence to purely logical frameworks becomes a liability. The intelligent individual who can fluidly transition between analytical thought, empathetic understanding, creative problem-solving, and even kinesthetic awareness possesses a far greater adaptive advantage.
This adaptability is the key to navigating the shifting landscapes of modern life, where solutions are rarely found in a single discipline. The challenges we face, climate change, social inequity, technological disruption, existential meaning in an automated world, these are not problems that can be solved by one type of intelligence alone. They require the symphony of all our capacities working in harmony. The ability to sense the emotional currents of a conversation, to intuitively grasp a complex social dynamic, or to creatively pivot when logic hits a wall. These are the true markers of a resilient and effective mind. The fear of vulnerability, so often masked by over-analysis, stems from a limited definition of what it means to be smart. By embracing a diversified intelligence, we begin to see that emotional courage and social grace are not weaknesses, but powerful forms of knowing, essential for thriving in a world that rewards fluidity over rigidity. We start to understand that the capacity to not know, to be uncertain,
to remain open to surprise is itself a form of intelligence, perhaps the most crucial one for navigating an uncertain future. The next frontier of intelligence isn't more knowledge, it's integration, bringing together logic, emotion, humility, and courage, letting go of the need to always be right in order to be real. You don't need to prove you're the smartest in the room. You need to be the most present, the most flexible, the most alive. So next time you freeze before sending that message, ask yourself, am I really being smart or just afraid? Because maybe, just maybe, vulnerability is a form of intelligence too. And that's the hidden challenge. We were raised in a culture that worships intelligence, but no one teaches us what to do when that same intelligence becomes our cage. We said it from the very beginning. Few dare to admit it can also imprison us. Viktor Frankl, through his profound work on logotherapy, offers a compelling framework for this integration. He posited that the primary motivational force in humans is the search for meaning, not pleasure or power. For the intellectually inclined, this often translates into a relentless pursuit of knowledge, believing that understanding alone will provide meaning. However, Frankl's experiences in concentration camps revealed that meaning is not found in abstract intellectual constructs, but in the concrete acts of living, loving, and suffering with purpose. The prisoners who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or the smartest, but those who could find meaning even in the most meaningless circumstances. This points to a radical redefinition of what it means to be intelligent. What if true intelligence isn't the accumulation of facts or the mastery of logic, but the capacity to find meaning in the midst of uncertainty? What if wisdom isn't about having the right answers, but about asking the right questions and still showing up even when we don't know what will happen next? The journey from smart to whole requires what the ancient Greeks called metanoia, a fundamental transformation of mind and heart. It's the recognition that the very qualities we've been taught to suppress, uncertainty, vulnerability, not knowing, might actually be gateways to a deeper form of intelligence. Consider the intelligence of love. When you send that message to someone you care about, you're exercising a form of knowing that transcends logic. You're demonstrating the intelligence of risk, the wisdom of vulnerability, the courage to act without guarantees. This isn't the absence of intelligence, it's intelligence in its fullest expression. The integrated mind doesn't abandon logic, it contextualizes it. It recognizes that analysis is a powerful tool, but like any tool, its value depends on knowing when and how to use it. There are times for deep thinking and times for immediate action, moments for questioning and moments for trusting, situations that call for the scalpel of reason and others that require the embrace of faith. True wisdom, as Frankl implies, lies in the capacity to find meaning, even in the face of the unanswerable, to act despite fear, and to connect authentically without the shield of intellectual superiority. It's the recognition that some of life's most important truths can't be thought, they must be lived. The intellectual's trap is often the belief that every problem has a perfectly logical solution, and that emotional discomfort is a sign of intellectual failure. But what if discomfort is actually intelligence trying to tell us something that logic alone cannot comprehend? What if anxiety is wisdom in disguise, pointing us toward the very growth we're trying to avoid? The journey from smart to whole is an invitation to shed the armor of intellect and step into the arena of lived experience, where the greatest insights are often found not in the answers we deduce, but in the questions we dare to ask and the connections we bravely forge. It is in this integration of mind and heart, of logic and vulnerability, of knowing and not knowing, that intelligence truly liberates, transforming from a potential cage into a powerful compass for a meaningful life. The goal isn't to become less intelligent, but to become more completely human, to let our brilliance serve not just our egos, but our deepest longing for connection, meaning, and authentic presence in the world. And perhaps this is the ultimate intelligence, the wisdom to know that being fully human is more valuable than being perfectly logical, that connection trumps correctness, and that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is to stop trying to be smart and simply be real.
We live in a world obsessed with intellectual performance. From school rankings to LinkedIn bios, intelligence has become a metric of moral value, a currency we trade for belonging, a shield we hold against the chaos of not knowing. But intelligence without integration is like light without warmth. It illuminates, but doesn't nourish. It shows us the path, but doesn't give us the courage to walk it. It reveals the distance between where we are and where we want to be, but leaves us frozen in the gap. What if the real evolution isn't about being the smartest, but becoming whole? What if the next stage of human development isn't about accumulating more knowledge, but about integrating what we already know with who we actually are? Letting go of the need to dominate with knowledge and starting to connect through presence. Trading the exhausting performance of perfection for the radical act of authenticity. Allowing uncertainty. Practicing softness. Learning to hold questions without immediately reaching for answers. Discovering that not knowing can be a doorway rather than a dead end. Daring to act even when the outcome is unknown. Because life isn't a theorem to be proven, it's a symphony to be played, often without sheet music, trusting the rhythm of your own heartbeat. The ancient Greeks had a word, kairos, the right moment, the perfect time, the intersection of readiness and opportunity. It's not something you can calculate or analyze your way into. It's something you feel, something you recognize, something you trust. Your intelligence can prepare you for kairos, but it cannot create it. Only presence can do that. Only the willingness to be fully here, fully alive to this moment, can position you to recognize when the time is right. Because perhaps wisdom isn't about having the right answer, but about asking the right questions and still showing up even without them. Perhaps it's about developing the rare courage to be intellectually humble and emotionally brave at the same time. To say, I don't know, and I'll try anyway in the same breath. So maybe the bravest thing you'll do this week isn't launching a project, solving a complex problem, or finishing that book. Maybe it's sending that message. Not because you've calculated the optimal outcome, not because you've analyzed every possible response, not because it's the smart thing to do, but because it's the human thing to do. Not because it's rational, but because it's real. And maybe that too is a form of genius. The genius of showing up. The genius of caring more about connection than correctness. The genius of choosing vulnerability over invulnerability, even when every analytical bone in your body screams against it. Maybe the highest form of intelligence isn't the ability to predict and control, but the wisdom to engage and trust. To trust the process. To trust the other person. To trust yourself. And maybe, just maybe, to trust that sometimes the most intelligent thing you can do is to stop trying to be intelligent and simply be alive. If you've made it this far, it's because you needed to hear this message. Something inside you is already shifting. Don't stop now. Take a moment to watch our latest video. Do this shadow work for 30 days. You won't recognize yourself. Where we dive into Carl Jung's shadow theory and why everything you're looking for is hidden in the parts of yourself you've rejected. We explore how living behind the persona leads to exhaustion, how the shadow holds your repressed potential, and how true transformation begins when you stop running from yourself
and start integrating what you've tried to hide. Because the path isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you really are. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining us so you don't miss what comes next. Until next time, take care of your mind, your soul, and your truth. You're not alone on this path. Not anymore.